humanity and God. And as Ron was sharing his story, I was just thinking more and more about this conversation with God. And remember with prayer, if we're going to do it without ceasing, we have to get beyond the idea of the formalized version of it. Not that that's wrong, not that we can't do the formalized thing, but how are you going to go around on your knees with your hands folded and your eyes closed without ceasing? It's not logical. Remember, you were made in the image of God. He breathed himself into you. His life is why you live. He's always with you. He always desires to commune with us without ceasing. And if we'll just acknowledge that and come to terms with the fact that he desires us to be in that communion with him. And he can do that with all of us at the same time. I can't help but every time we get together, look at you and think about how 2 Corinthians 3 says that as we behold Christ and his glory, that we're changed from glory to glory. And then I look at all of you and I see the image of God beaming, shining, his glory. You guys see that? You see how awesome? Look at what God did. You're all masterpieces. Incredible. I was thinking about a sermon title during that last song, and it may seem a little bit strange. But the sermon title is No Pot to Pee In.
What?
You guys have heard that saying. Man, life is so bad. I don't even have a bathroom. Oh, I don't know. Have you guys looked back there today? So, Brenda and I were talking about the bathroom situation yesterday, and it's so amazing to have friends in the community that are so gracious and allowing us to use their facilities. Because legally, we can't assemble like this without a bathroom available. So there was actually talk about having to cancel our service today. That's unacceptable. That's not okay. God resolves everything. He always does. So when Brenda and I were talking, she brought back a very vivid memory of camp meeting. Those of you that haven't been to camp meeting is where at that time people would go for 10 days to this place. They'd stay in these cabin tents, these wooden structures with canvas over the top. And there was kind of strange food there. The stillness, a little strange. And during the day, there's all these meetings. And there's stuff for the kids and all of that, and thousands of people and all of that. And my grandma, who's from the old country. The old country, when you go back and look at the old European environment, going way back, when there wasn't any running water. And at night, you didn't want to go out to the privy. They had a pot in their bedroom. Right? And you were in a bad way if you didn't have a pot to pee. And so when I was thinking about this and thinking about how we can get so negative about that a saying comes all the way down through the ages. That a negative saying, where we go, oh, woe am I. What a silly little thing. What a silly little thing. That we would even complain about that and that we bring it all the way down. Well, the vivid memory is this. My grandma, not only did she have some of the old country ways, but she had the old country, she was from Germany, and she would ask her grandkids to go take care of her pot that she took to camp meeting. She had a little curtain, and in the morning, the grandkids got to go take care of that for her. I was the youngest, and so I only got a little bit in on that action. But Brenda got in on it a lot. And And so, as we were talking about this, all those memories come back together, and thinking about those, we can look at that as negative, we can look at that as positive, we can look at whatever it is in life in all of those terms. Whether we're being sued, or whether we're just feeling like God's mad at us, or like nothing is going right. Yesterday was a fascinating day for me. It started at about 4 o'clock in the morning with my very hairy-faced son, wild-eyed, about this close to my face, over my bed, coughing without stopping. He looked like he was nuts. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. He had his mother on the phone because she's staying with Grandma because she has a broken hip. So the whole week has been going on this little adventure. And he's got a fever of 104. And so, we also had a foot of snow outside to help things be a little bit more interesting. And so, I had to do a thing that I hate doing, cancel my 6 o'clock morning breakfast that I don't like doing. And I was already frustrated. Here's my son who's sick, and I want to help him, and I'm excited to help him and all that, but I'm already conflicted going, oh my word, now this is how the day's going to begin. Right? So I'm wearing my Converse, I get out in the snow, now my feet are wet for the rest of the day. That's why I'm wearing these today. By the way, these remind me of my wife because I bought them the first year we were married. And they've been up a lot of mountains. They've seen a lot of, they're not fashionable like the REI ones. These are kind of redneck old school. But you know, that's okay. Does it fit? Find out that my daughter has a fever of 103. So I go to get her, and we're going to go to urgent care. As this carries on, we finally are making our way to the pharmacy about 2 o'clock, and I'm one by one canceling all of my appointments. I don't like doing that. Ministry is really a big deal to me. I'm pretty serious about it. And I don't like canceling stuff. And so I'm sitting there kind of stoic. I know I'm doing the right thing, but inside I'm frustrated. I'm stoic. And so I realized how stoic I was when my kids started apologizing because my day was being disrupted. Uh-oh. Ooh, there's a time for a check. My check engine light came on. Right? I go back to the house, and not our house, but Alice's house, and I look at Simona and I see it in her eyes, and I go, man, we got to take your temperature. High fever. And she goes, don't tell anybody, I'm still going to keep nursing and serving. So we needed to go to the town and go buy a rotisserie chicken for chicken noodle soup and a few things like that. And so she gets in the car. She's the director of risk management, and so her life is still going. She's still getting emails, still getting phone calls. And we get in the car, and it's really funny, and we're saying, who gets to use the Bluetooth now? Because now the sick kids and Grandma are there. One of the sick kids is taking care of Grandma, and now it's time for us to get our ministry business on. She's busily going through all of her emails, and I'm trying to get all my texts back and trying to make my phone calls and all that. This is crazy, people. Last night at 11 o'clock, I pulled into my driveway and got to just sit down. You know what I got to see? Lots of snow, yeah. In fact, I have bald tires on the truck, so I barely was able to turn around in the driveway. I almost ran into my other vehicle in the process. And I got to see all of God's amazing wonder. The only thing that was on the driveway when I came home were the tracks that I stopped and looked at them of the two cougars that are running around our property. I was like, yes, they didn't kill these ones. I was worried that they were the ones that they killed in Silverton. Good, they didn't kill our cougars. I love our cougars. They're awesome. If I had a screen here, I'd show you pictures of them. Our neighbor has them. They're beautiful. It's a little juvenile and a full-grown one. They're gorgeous cats. Fantastic.
You guys saw them?
Yeah, we've seen them at night. So they're phenomenal. But our neighbor has trail cam set up, so he's got images that captures of them that way too. And then I saw the coy wolves, and I saw that their tracks had come up from the field up next to the back porch, and there's the deer laying under the cherry tree. I mean, when you've had a day like this, how in the world can you still be frustrated? Right? How can you be frustrated? Have you seen what God looks like? Look around. I have one desire that would be realized in this church. If there's one thing that I could see and make sure that it occurred, it's not that you would learn to be religious. Not that you would learn and be able to parse Greek and Hebrew. Not that you would be able to recite doctrine. But that you would know God. And that you would see Him. And that you would hear Him. And that you would talk with Him. Because I am convinced that if you know God and if you speak to God, then you have it all. Then you receive everything else. Habakkuk's prayer in Habakkuk chapter 3. This prayer was sung by the prophet Habakkuk. Maybe I have to rethink my dislike for musicals. Right? He's singing a prayer. In verse 2 it says, I have heard all about you, Lord. I am filled with awe by your amazing works. In this time of our deep need, help us again as you did in the years gone by. In your anger, remember your mercy. I see God moving across the deserts from Edom, the Holy One coming from Mount Paran. His brilliant splendor fills the heavens, and the earth is filled with His praise. His coming is as brilliant as the sunrise. Rays of light flash from His hands where His awesome power is hidden. I want to pause there for a second. We talked about this a few years ago. Now, some of you may not have been there when we talked about it. I like to picture this scene here as the splendor of the Messiah, Jesus Christ. That the rays of light, the glory of God, coming from His palms. The place that represents His sacrifice. Humility. The ultimate rescue. What would you do if you saw Jesus raise His hands and you saw the glory of God shining through the center of His palms? Would you be a little awestruck? Would you be a little bit in the mindset of, I think I'm coming undone? Maybe. What a scene. He's talking about what He's seeing as far as God is. He's coming, and it's brilliant as the sunrise. Rays of light flash from His hands where His awesome power is hidden. Pestilence marches before him, plagues follow close behind. When he stops, the earth shakes. When he looks, the nations tremble. He shatters the everlasting mountains and levels the eternal hills. He is the eternal one. I want to dare you to have another bad day. How can we ever allow ourselves to claim a bad day with this God? Man, what a God. I see the people of Cushan in distress and the nation of Midian trembling in terror. Was it in anger, Lord, that you struck the rivers and parted the sea? Check out this next part of verse 8. Were you displeased with them? No. You were sending your chariots of salvation. People blame God when things aren't going well. What are you thankful for today?
I'm thankful for this. You know, everybody here coming together to want to have a relationship with God.
Awesome. I'm thankful for this too, Daryl. Yeah.
I'm thankful for waking up this morning.
Amen. We're glad you're here, my brother. Imagine if we were thankful and we shared that thankfulness and we encourage each other in thankfulness and that we begin to have that be the environment of our lives. There's always something that we can be a little off about. There's always something that can be a little bit uncomfortable. There's always something that we could complain about. But there's the converse also, which would be we can give glory to this incredible God. That he acts with such power that some people think, was he displeased? No, he's not displeased. It's chariots of salvation. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego went through the fire of salvation. They were rescued in a furnace. They weren't rescued from the furnace, they were rescued in the furnace. Facebook has good things on it sometimes. I saw this thing that popped up and it said, if you're feeling the heat and you're being melted, remember that you're like gold. You're not trash, because trash can't be melted. It just burns up. God is recreating you. He's refining you so that you will reflect his glory. And when you look at each other, you'll see the glory of God. It doesn't matter what form it shows up in. It doesn't matter if you've got fancy shoes like these. None of that matters. The glory of God far exceeds all those human attributes that we tend to just focus on. God is not mad at you. If you're having a bad day, God is not mad at you. So please don't continue having that bad day. If it was just you, and it was just you that was formed, like Adam was formed, he would have still breathed himself, his life, into you. What a conversation. He goes on, he goes, you brandish your bow and your quiver of arrows. You split open the earth with flowing rivers. The mountains watched and trembled. Onward swept the raging waters. The mighty deep cried out, lifting its hands in submission. The sun and moon stood still in the sky as your brilliant arrows flew and your glittering spear flashed. You marched across the land in anger and trampled the nations in your fury. You went out to rescue your chosen people, to save your anointed ones. You crushed the heads of the wicked and stripped their bones from head to toe. With his own weapons you destroyed the chief of those who rushed out like a whirlwind, thinking Israel would be easy prey. You trampled the sea with your horses, and the mighty waters piled up. And then he talks about his emotional response. I trembled inside when I heard this. My lips quivered with fear. My legs gave way beneath me and I shook in terror. I will wait quietly for the coming day when disaster will strike the people who invade us. God is big enough for everything you face. Remember, he said that you aren't just barely winning by his power, that you are more than conquerors. You don't almost win, you overwhelmingly have won because he already overwhelmingly won. You're not in the process of winning, you've already won. Because Colossians says that your life, your real life, is in Christ, who is seated next to the Father, already in heaven. It's your reality. It's your real life. It's your eternity. So then he goes on and he gets a little melodramatic. Even though the fig trees have no blossoms. By the way, my cherry tree hasn't bloomed yet. Did you know?
Ours hasn't bloomed yet either.
And there are no grapes on the vines. My grapes aren't growing very well either.
Okay, but
Man.
no.
What's the deal? And even though the olive crop fails, the fields lie empty and barren. Even though the flocks die in the fields and the cattle barns are empty, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in the God of my salvation. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes me as sure-footed as a deer, able to tread upon the heights. That's you. If you're looking and you see your problems, or you're looking and you see the accuser, the enemy, you might be looking in the wrong direction. I have found that the repetition in life, looking at the problem, makes sure that all we see is the problem. And then we'll find new problems too. Look at the Lord of your salvation with flashes of light from his palms. The place of his power. You're his kids. You wouldn't be breathing without his life in you. Remember I told you I was going to remind you of something again and again? When Jesus was praying, John chapter 17, verse 10, he says something remarkable. He says that you are his glory. You guys, you're his glory. So what about the enemy? So what about what the enemy's doing? And the things that we would rather not be experiencing. The early church had a lot of problems. They had to overcome a lot of things. Every single generation has things to overcome. Today, there's different things to overcome, but there's still things to overcome, and we're not going to do it by looking at problems. If we sit here and look at the out of order sign and go, oh my word, I don't have a pot to pee in, and that's all we talk about. How far would we get?
Then you ask your neighbor, can I have help? And you
Boom.
can ask her.
And the glory of God, in the form of Q, a boxing champion, he goes, man, you can use my pot. Awesome.
Yes.
So then God connects us with another one of his glory.
It's like the story Stone Soup,
Yeah.
where everybody's like, oh no, I don't have this, no, I don't have food, I don't have food in here. And the old man puts the stone in the water, and then all of a sudden, everybody starts coming in and putting in stuff.
Yeah. It's not that God doesn't have resources, it's that he wants us to share the ones he has.
Yes, but it's the attitude.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. 1 Thessalonians. I think chapter 5, verse 16. 3 words. Always be joyful. Always. I don't see any exception clauses here. Do you see any in there? Where's the exceptions? Except for when I don't understand what's happening, except for when I don't like what's happening, except when I compare what's happening to me to other people and it's not fair. Remember, I want to remind you again, the term for iniquity or our sin nature is bent towards self. We're navel gazers. That's our nature. Remember, righteousness is always spoken of as being upright, not bent towards self. Christ himself is our righteousness. And our navel gazing has never helped us. Our whole world is filled with navel gazing. And when we stand upright, we can see the glory of God in all those around us. When we're navel gazing, all we see is belly button lint. Right? And nobody wants to see that. Always be joyful. Verse 17, never stop praying. Don't stop. Right now, while we are having a conversation today, be talking to God. It's okay if you speak while I'm speaking. Because we're in a conversation here together with God. We've had some weird ideas over the years where we have things called invocations, where we're invoking God's Spirit. It's a weird thing. We already have His Spirit. He breathed it into us. God is already present. He's already with us, acknowledging His presence with us, and being here together in His name. And He's in this conversation with us. Amen. He kind of likes you guys. Sorry. I had a little bit more than kind of. Yeah. Especially those drummers. I don't know. He's got a thing for drummers. Next verse, as we wrap it up. I almost saw the clock. Yeah, the clock is still there. It's still working. Be thankful in all circumstances. What about when you have a headache? What about when you just got bad news? I have a question for you. How do you know it was bad news? How do you know? We don't know what's bad for us and what isn't. Maybe what we got was bad news was something that was far less than what we would have had not there been an intervention and we got a lesser version of something. We don't know. So be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Christ Jesus. Oh my word, how many times have I heard the churches get together and go, I don't know what God's will is. God, show us your will. And then we say we're people of the book. Over and over, he tells us his will. That we would be tender-hearted and that we would show compassion and love for one another. And that we would be thankful in all circumstances. Key word, all. All. So, some of you might be close to achieving this. No, I'm not there. It doesn't mean it isn't a worthy thing for us to remind each other, encourage one another, lift each other up. You're going to get through this. We've seen people overcome in a mighty way in this church. We've seen miraculous thing after miraculous thing, people getting through extreme difficulties. And it's not by might and it's not by power, but by God's Spirit. Not by our clever plans and our strikingly good looks.
Well, that's really nice.
I'm a fashionista. We've talked about that before, right? Yeah. I should be on magazine covers. I'm pretty sure about that.
Which part?
You know what? Do me a favor. If someone around you is being negative, love them. Don't condemn them. But be thankful and don't join them. Because I'm convinced that thankfulness will always shine brighter than negativity. Right? So yesterday in the craziness, trying to juggle a gazillion things, I started getting pictures about the no pot to pee in. And it didn't seem, obviously that's not going to be done in half a day. And so there was all kinds of ways to approach this and go, oh my word, we can't do this, we can't have services. Or we can say, does God want us to gather together in His name? What is His will? That we be thankful? That we are His kids? He will work it out, guys. He will always work it out. We have a building here because He works it out. He's been faithful all along. He's faithful right now, and He's going to be faithful tomorrow and next week. It's not going to end. Because our real life is in Him. Come lead us in a song.